Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Legal Gen AI Around the World series. This time we're focusing on Asia, and we've got some absolutely amazing panelists to chat about what's happening in Legal Gen AI in Asia. Let me introduce you to our fantastic panelists. First panelist, we're going in alphabetical order here. So Kamal Gupta. Kamal is the Chief Innovation Officer at Cyril Amachand Mangaldas, and very, very happy to have you here. Sebastian Coe, who's the General Counsel at DFX Labs, and Rajesh Srinivasan, who is the Head of Technology, Media, Telecoms, that practice area at Raja and Tan, Singapore. So really fantastic cross-section of folks in practice and outside it around Asia. So really, really looking forward to this session. Welcome, everybody. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Hi.
So I wanted to kick off because not everyone may have the good fortune of knowing all of you as I do. So I wanted to kick off, first of all, with a little bit about you. And Kamal, I'm going to ask this question of you first, but just in terms of this kind of big mass of Legal Gen AI, to get a little bit of a background of what you're doing at your firm, you know, where are you from a firm point of view? Where are you personally on your Gen AI journey? And I guess even what you're looking at, what you're focusing on right now as well. So if you can start us off, Kamal, over to you.
Sure. So, I think 7 years ago, so it's the 8th year now, we started off with our AI journey. So Gen AI has come, on top of the AI. So the good thing is that we were already using a lot of AI-enabled technologies. And then came the big news of the ChatGPT, taking the world over types with so much noise in November 22. Personally, when November 22, I don't think, the noise was created. It started off in the first quarter of 23. And that's when I realized that it's important that we test it, not just, I don't think at that time it was more about law. It was more about just checking it on a personal level, that the whole world seems to be talking about it. So what is it really doing? And in March 23, I downloaded ChatGPT on my mobile, because I wanted to get a hands-on experience of, what does it really do? And I was amazed to see how it can help me with my drafting on a personal side. So if I was writing an application, if I was writing some summary, sometimes, help with some little one paragraph on something, or maybe actually my kids wanting to do something, it was really very helpful. It could write, I would say, better than what I would have written. The words that it chooses is much better than what I would do. And then I started reading about what's happening in the legal space. So it was also important to check then how, the same technology could help in the legal space. But that was not really the best results. And then we started exploring what is available in the market. And then also came the news of Harvey. And, slowly then, I think by the time we started exploring, there were already some ready products or, in the making. That were providing generative AI, services, whether for drafting, summarization, or even a chatbot. And where are we today? So it's been a year that we've been exploring. We know what products are available in the market. We also know how can we make our own, products. If we want to make something very customized, we know how to do it. But the important thing is that we took, step by step, we moved. The first one was to explore what's there in the market and what can we do. The second was, okay, now we understand how this whole thing works. Now let's go to the firm and find out what are the use cases.
Yeah.
Then we found the use cases, and then we started again now working on the solutions. So in legal research, we're already using generative AI for the last 9 months, and very, very, well. But for summarization, for drafting, and for asking questions from my knowledge database, we are testing right now. And we are testing a number of products. So we are doing the Copilot, we're doing the Henchman, we're doing others as well. And we are just wanting to see, which one suits us the best. So we are in the exploratory stage right now. With all other things, with research, we are ahead.
Fantastic. So firing away in India by the sounds of it, Kamal. So let me switch gears and go over to Singapore and to you, Rajesh. how are you kind of with your firm and you personally, or where are you on your legal Gen AI journey?
Sure, thanks. Well, for us, it's somewhat similar to Komal as well. It's all about hands-on experimentation and recognizing the fact that with Gen AI, we're talking about technology that can, in fact, change the very fabric of the way in which we create our legal deliverables, the way we interface with our clients, and the way we work amongst ourselves. So for us, it was getting to understand how large language models actually work, starting some journeys with Hugging Face, with localized large language models within our firm, leveraging the tech people we have at Raja and Tan Technologies, and then learning through experimentation. For example, we learned very quickly that we can't really host our own large language model. It just requires so much resources. So then we had to look at leveraging, and then other challenges came up in terms of confidentiality, client confidentiality, etc. So we're trying to find a very fine balance between really understanding this technology, making sure that we continue to maintain our responsibilities as officers of the court, to maintain client confidentiality and to ensure that the quality of the output is not affected. The concern we have is that there'll be too much leverage on AI, such that two things happen. One, we don't train our lawyers well enough. The lawyers don't really understand or take accountability for the output that's issued by these AI systems. And second, the issue of accuracy. They need to verify. So it's a learning journey for us, and happy to share more.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will encourage you to do that as we progress, Rajesh. Thank you. But wrapping up this question, Seb, in obviously in Hong Kong, where or how are you finding yourself and your organization on this journey?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, a bit of context. I mean, I come to this space having used AI tools in my work as a legal tech vendor in the past couple of years before going into this in-house role, as well as using it as part of the at the community level with the Law Society of Hong Kong. So I'm going to be approaching some of these questions on the call today from these different contexts. Overall, it's in Hong Kong, obviously. We have to deal with a lot of cross-boundary and cross-border data transfers, working very closely with our colleagues in mainland China, as well as overseas. Dealing with how to, the basic kind of data protection issues, as well as making sure that, AI models are being trained properly with the data, regulated data that may be stored in Hong Kong, are, some of the, very tough challenges that we face. And secondly, in terms of dealing with a bilingual, multilingual environment in the legal profession, obviously, AI is definitely getting there in terms of, assisting with transcriptions and machine translations. That's also something that we see day to day as part of our work in the legal profession here.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to dive into the use cases a little bit more because I guess, we're almost in the year of having, as you've all kind of touched on, experimented a bit, but really trying to define or to refine what those use cases actually are. And I wanted to come to you first on this one, Rajesh, if I may. As we're sitting here today, do we have definitive use cases? And I'm going to split this in half, both from a business of law perspective, how we're using it to run our businesses, as well as a practice of law perspective, and that I guess speaks to itself. How are you finding it? If we put it all in a bucket and we're shaking it out, what's actually falling out as far as the use cases are concerned?
Sure. It's a combination of, as you rightly put it, the practice of law and the administration aspects of running a legal practice. And so when we brought in foundational large language model solutions like Microsoft Copilot, we deliberately shared it with both our centralized services teams as well as with our lawyers. And so what that meant was, for example, our knowledge management team find the summarization capabilities to be fairly good. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but it definitely speeds up the rate at which they're able to summarize and synthesize larger press releases and content from government departments and be able to churn things out faster. Our marketing team have really been enjoying the capabilities in terms of churning out LinkedIn posts and other short form press releases, and we do a fair bit of that in the firm. And our lawyers can be rather demanding because these things are time sensitive. So they've been enjoying that part quite a bit. Again, feedback is mixed, good in some senses, but it still needs human intervention to really get it right 100%. I have no doubt that this will improve over time, but as things stand now, there's still a need for people to understand it's still very much a tool that will help speed things up, but what can still hold you back if you just choose to just cut and paste the content. It's not there 100% yet. The other areas would be for us as lawyers, the tabletop research that we're doing today, speeding up that process by using the AI solutions built into platforms such as Lexis+. So we're seeing quite a lot of improvement there. So moving away from the old trying to find titles and free text searches to now an NLP-based, natural language processing-based query they need to key into Lexis+. That requires us to train our lawyers as well to be more articulate on what exactly it is that they need. So there, again, it's pros and cons. On one hand, I am torn a little bit as to whether we need to change our lawyers' way of research from the traditional free text search models, right, where they find keywords and they do what they do and get fairly good results, to this new natural language processing model, where we are in fact asking the engine to, from those words that we share, extrapolate, find the keywords, and then bring things back to us. Again, mixed results that we're seeing. What we're doing internally is to sort of do a quick test between lawyers doing it the traditional free text search way and the new natural language processing way. What I'm seeing, surprisingly, is that the NLP models are actually pretty good. I think that comes from the fact that some of the curated models like Lexis, and I'm sure Thomson Reuters will be similar as well, have already trained the engines on the types of questions and the types of queries that come in at the free text search windows, and then have trained their engine such that when you put those broader questions in, the NLP understands where you're coming from. I won't say it's perfect, but it's been surprisingly good. Having said that, for some of the deeper research, we still like to go back to free text searches to augment what we get from the natural language queries that we put in on Lexis+. And then finally, I mean, the one that we are quite excited by is horizon scanning tools that we're seeing. There's one particular project that we're in right now where we're working with the King's College London with a company called GraceNote.ai, where we're working together to try and create a horizon scanning tool that will allow regulatory lawyers to constantly and persistently be scanning on their respective regulators' websites to get the latest information and to receive it in a summarized form. And that will allow us to then very quickly update our clients on not just what the change is, but also how it will impact their business model. So that is something that, a few things that maybe I'll start off with for the discussion.
Just picking up on that, Rajesh, are you finding that the use cases can at the moment be categorized by practice area? There's, there's obviously the broad brush ones that impact every practice area, but are you finding you're at that point, or will you go down that track, or do you think you'll end up there in the fullness of time?
I certainly think so, but we tend to take broader categorizations. We have about 12 different specialist practices in the firm, but we've taken a simpler approach of having litigation-centric use cases, corporate-centric use cases, which tend to be more around the issue of drafting and drafting like Henchman that we use to be able to very quickly and rapidly do clause creation and clause identification from our precedents. And then finally, regulatory work, where there's a need for these specific horizon scanning tools. And regulatory people you'll find both in Liti and in corporate. And that spread seems to have worked quite well for us.
So it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds like your approach is kind of like platform plus point source in a way,
yes.
almost. Is that a fair summary?
Very much so.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Thanks, Derek. I got to remember that.
It's yours forever, Rajesh. Kamal, let me ask you, you started to touch on this in the intro, but let me ask you that same question. Are use cases, emerging definitively, or still an experimentation phase at this point?
So some of them are very clear, Terry, because I think when we went to the practitioners and to the business services asking them for use cases, we explained to them what generative AI can do. And, we tried to give them some knowledge material so they understand what are we asking, sometimes. And let me, say that when we asked for use cases related to generative AI, we did get many use cases which were related to technology-based solutions. So, it was a long list, very impressive list. But then when we started reviewing them and we started segregating, we said, oh, this is just a technology solution, or this is just a process-based solution, but great to know because at least we know that there's a problem and we can solve it. But then we also zeroed down on the various use cases that were actually related to GenAI. Now, what is it that people are wanting? Well, some of them are very specific to the firm, but in general, the summary is that people want things to be automated. Can I get, if I'm, so for example, I spend a lot of time reviewing my documents that I receive, a summary would be great. But, again, that caution is always there, that is it accurate? And can I rely on the summary that is coming up? Which is why when we are evaluating the technologies, the quality of the outcome is very, very important for us to review. Similarly, drafting. Can I, when it is integrated with my knowledge database, it knows, the technology knows how I draft my NDAs or how I draft my BTAs or SHAs or whatever. And again, a law firm is not going to be doing very simple, straightforward 2 to 3 pages drafting, right? It's going to be very complicated drafting. But can I teach the technology through my drafts and say, okay, now generate a new draft for me with these, tweaking parts. These are my specifics. Can I get, and, is it doing a good job? Decent. I would say again, when we, whether you, even the technologies that are selling themselves as generative AI, experts and drafting experts, they also say the same thing, that the quality that you will get will be that of an associate. So you will have to, junior most associate, you will have to review it, and, just as you would review your associate's work. And are we there? In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. Which is why, pretty much the same thing that Rajesh said. We have to, this is not just go to the market and buy something. It's an ongoing journey. You have to, there are 2 parts to it. One, you have to manage the vendor, because you have to work with them to tell whether you're getting great results or not. And if you're not getting, you have to share it actually, to say that, do something about it, because this seems to be going really wrong. And what is it that you have to fix, so that the results are good. So you have to keep on continuously giving feedback. On the other hand, when the users get onto the technology, you have to set the expectations right. You have to tell them that, look, this is not magical. It's not going to start doing your job. So be patient with it. You have to double check what the output is. You have to make sure that, it's not going to be doing 100% your job and you just pick it up and you send it to the client. You're going to sit and review the output and, tweak it. It's just for your help. So it'll make things faster for you, but it's not going to do your work. But amongst the use cases, while I talked about the lawyers, mainly focusing on, while they might be specific to practices or specific to a particular team, it is all around drafting, summarization, Q&A, and using all of the so many years of, knowledge that we can integrate the technology with and get the benefit out of that knowledge. On the other hand, for business services, again, we are flooded with lots of internship applications, job applications. Can we use the technology to sift through the right profiles and, and not just get into the whole big folders of applications, but can we just be pointed towards these seems to be the right profiles for your firm. Similarly, the marketing team, again, they do so much of market research. And right now, you have various sources that you look at. But can it be automated? Can we have the template that we use? Can the whole process be automated, and can it then start coming in that same format? So we're working on all of this. We've not achieved it all. And I think it is too short a time as well to say that, we've achieved it all. We are working on we're working on everything parallelly. And we're looking at solutions parallelly.
I suspect it's going to continue to be a work in progress, by the way. It's just one that's never going to end. But it's a great segue to you, Seb. How are you putting on that hat as a tech vendor, and also with your eye to how this is impacting the community? How are you approaching this whole kind of idea of use cases?
Yeah, I mean, I echo some of the comments from Kamal before. I've moved away from the vendor hat, but now I'm on the other side of it. Being heading up a small in-house team, part of a financially regulated and licensed entity. Starting off with strong small use cases, right, to build the quick wins. Making sure that there's strong buy-in from different stakeholders in the organization is absolutely crucial. And the same goes, and I'm very glad to hear in the community front, same kind of approach and mentality is being adopted. So I addressed sort of both cases, right? On ladder first, the judiciary in Hong Kong has just rolled out a pilot on bilingual transcription, so voice to text. I mean, for those of us, working with Siri or, other kind of bots, that's, nothing to sort of write home to. But, for the judiciary here in Hong Kong, to start exploring this, it paves a great way, because I think from there, you can build up, databases, and your faster turnarounds in terms of technology support for the courtroom, and opening that up to litigation firms and litigators. On the sort of private organization adoption side, bringing online, for example, a contract review system or contract lifecycle management system, which I'm doing right now, it takes 4 to 5 different departments to come together, right? Agreeing first of all on the basic kind of foundational matters first, like in terms of approval controls for your documentation, legal documentation contracts, data stores, right? Doing some light level data mapping and architecture, around where do we store different kinds of data, and then we build the AI element of it. Do we have an AI policy in place, right? What kind of data are we comfortable with sending out to third-party vendors? The GenAI platforms that are available. And making sure again that we discharge legal and regulatory duties around that. These are the sort of things that we have to contend with. On a smaller scale, I've begun to test out, and we use Microsoft Copilot to test out and perhaps you can say back test some of our templates and sort of different kind of contracts and agreements to see how well GenAI have sort of performed, and I've sort of benchmarked them, with other vendors as well, just to see, in terms of running them through boilerplate clauses, do they pick up on certain things? So, for example, just to be a bit more concrete, let's say the assignment clause. Well, in common law rules, we have the assignment of both obligations and rights, right, between parties. But the AI being very helpful, quote unquote, wanted to put things in plain English and start omitting things like just transfer of rights instead of obligations. Something that we have to put in there. And so again, like these sort of things make it a little bit, it creates a bit of reservation in me and my team to see, how, again, I think where GenAI right now is, and the robustness and the, high risk context that legal tasks needs to apply these tools to, it's risky, for some for these sort of workflows to deploy completely and rely on them. But if they do the first cut review and we have to supervise the AI, does the total time make it efficient or cost efficient? I think that we need to sort of see it case by case in terms of what exactly is the tool and workflow that we apply them to.
Yeah, absolutely. Just staying with that role of general counsel for a second, Seb, and obviously the legal department is part of a much, much larger enterprise, which is obviously being driven and influenced by all of this as well. Do you see the legal department in terms of moving forward and GenAI as using their own tools and kind of binding their own tools within that enterprise structure, or relying increasingly with respect to that on the law firms that would be advising them? Like where do you see that sitting?
Yeah, I think, I'm more of an exception than the norm. I see, colleagues of mine as general counsel or in-house counsel in other companies, because of the high risk nature of our work. they tend to rely a lot more on vendors or external firms, right? What they're comfortable in doing with. And again, it depends on the type of workflow, right? I think, in terms of like, let's say billing management or time management, with stuff that they have to share data with their external counsel, they may rely a lot more on them to see whether they're comfortable with doing certain of these things. But from my perspective, and it's very interesting, because we're doing a lot of stuff from scratch at the moment in terms of setting up the legal department and a lot of these workflows. My colleagues from other departments are already aware of these needs from a legal ops perspective. So they were the ones who actually raised with me to say, oh, how would you like to set up the e-sign, electronic signature, or the contract lifecycle management systems, without me actually having to build a case, which was a lot of hard yard and challenges a couple of years ago, for example, to bring that case forward to other departments and to get final a sign off from finances. So yeah, these are the kind of contentions that we're dealing with right now. And in terms of Gen AI and AI, we are taking it step by step in terms of looking at data that we're comfortable with sharing with third party vendors, none of the sort of customer specific and sensitive kind of data, and we're sort of building out that way.
Yeah, fantastic. We've all touched on LLMs, but I wanted to kind of just address that specifically. If I'm understanding what all of you are saying, you're all in the camp at this point in time of buying versus building. Is that correct? Yeah, seeing nodding of heads in terms of LLM. Rajesh,
except I think like the earlier point flagged before, which is they still require a lot of work,
of course,
right?
Yeah.
In terms of building, like tailoring workflows that are bespoke to your organization.
Yeah.
So that, for me, that translates into headcounts, right?
Yeah.
I need to get approval for headcounts for a legal ops support person, an application support person. That may be also familiar, or at least, working very closely with the legal and compliance departments. That's not like, having Microsoft 365 out of the box sort of thing, right?
Yeah. And I guess we were all touching a little bit on RAGs before as well and using those. Rajesh, let me come to you because you were shaking your head. Is that sort of, I guess I'm going to call it broadly, that level of customization, which can come in a whole bunch of different ways. How are you approaching that in terms of build and buy?
Sure. Yeah. So the RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, is fundamental, because what that means is that we're not just relying on third-party content, which may or may not actually fit requirements. We also weave into that our own content, meaning this 20+ year challenge that we had of building a workable precedent database. We've done this so many times, but it just doesn't gel. People have all kinds of excuses for not wanting to do this. But through retrieval augmented generation, the data is accessible by us giving the engine access to things like, okay, can't name the databases, but certain repositories directly. And through that exercise, it then learns and then is able to generate content very similar to what the lawyers have always been doing. And so it's somewhat segmented and customized. So for example, our shipping lawyers will get shipping-related precedents. At least that's the vision. We're still in the process of really formulating the RAG model. Our insolvency lawyers will get content that's taken from the insolvency models, or M&A from the M&A database of precedents. And those documents will then be augmented with the base documents that the service provider would also provide. So if it is a co-counsel model, for example, that we're testing right now, that allows a degree of RAG, and then that means we have both the Thomson Reuters precedents plus our own clauses that pop up on the sidebar. It looks very, very good, but it's still a limited test case. So we'll have to test it robustly. So that's what I meant by, I agree with Komal, it is off the shelf. For example, Co-Counsel is off the shelf product. But then again, as Sebastian said, there's the work that we need to do to make it ours. And I think that's what gives me a lot of hope, because our instance of Co-Counsel will be different from Komal's instance, will be different from what Sebastian is doing. And that's why I like this technology, actually, the fact that it's so customizable.
Yeah, and ultimately connects to your use cases right at the end of the day as well. Yeah, Kamal, any thoughts to add? Because I know you touched on a number of these things earlier, but thoughts to add in relation to the build buy discussion?
So, Terry, we've seen, at least we must have seen some 8 to 10 products in the last 1 year. I don't think even the ones that claim that it's a plug and play, technology and it'll start doing wonders. All of them require us to train it a bit on our data. Because I don't think, as Rajesh said, any firm will have exactly the same requirements. We will have our own ways of doing things. Jurisdiction-wise, anyways, it'll be different. But even within the same jurisdiction, every firm, every company will have its own priorities and the way we do our style, things. And for any tool to say that we are a plug and play, no, it will not work. We've come to that conclusion already, and we are, working with the vendors to customize it to suit our needs. The good news is that the vendors also understand it, and they are also learning with us, and they are very happy to receive feedback and customize solutions. They also know that when you're coming to the lawyer and selling these products, the first question will be on risks involved and confidentiality and all that. And they are working, to address that. So they already have like a whole, document ready to answer that question. So I'd say that, I don't think there's a plug and play, technology available. We have to work with the technology vendors to customize the solution. And while it's great to be thinking about, building your own solution and, building a proprietary solution, I do feel that if there is already a product that is in the market, I feel that, the amount of resources and the amount of time that will go in building your own, it's better to, if the tool that is available in the market can be tweaked to your needs, go for that in comparison to, doing the whole thing all over again. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, really. That's the way I think. Unless we come up with such a specific use case that we say, okay, this one is just ours.
Yeah.
And we can take it then to the others.
Yeah. I want to jump back to something that all of you have mentioned, and that's capabilities. And we've called it lots of things. We've called it digital literacy. You have all touched on the basis that when we're looking at this sort of tech, we're really looking at a lot of specialisms. Lawyers are certainly one of them, but we're looking really at a multidisciplinary team. And Rajesh, I wanted to come to you on this one because I know it's something that you have all thought very deeply about, and you in particular. But as we sit here today, what do you see as the must-have capabilities? And I guess the obvious next question is, do we have them? And how do we prepare students and early career lawyers and allied legal professionals for what is really looking to be a very, very different future from what's gone before? So I know that's a lot of pieces in one question. So yeah, just sort us out, will you, Rajesh? Thank you.
No, I think, maybe I'll start off with the first bit in terms of the skill sets that are needed. I am a lawyer. I know my limitations in this space, and we need people with project skills, project engineering skills. We need people with process reengineering skills as well. And so, we lean a lot on our guys at Raja & Tan Technologies. So if I were to describe the person that I work with, his name is Michael Lees. He used to be Chief Innovation Officer at the International Criminal Court at The Hague, and then subsequently the Chief Information or Innovation Officer at the Attorney General's Chambers. And then we got him to join us, so the AG is slightly upset with me, but that's okay. But the skills that he brings really is that skill of first being a lawyer a long time ago, and then switching to look at how he can take technology and really meld it into the legal workflow. That requires a multi-practice approach for him to sit down with individual practice groups and say, okay, guys, in shipping, what do you do? How do you actually get your work done from day to day? and then suggest how it is that they can leverage off Copilot as foundational LLM, how they can leverage off Henchman, let's say from a contract drafting perspective in terms of ship financing, and then how they can use our litigation-based AI tools like Relativity when it comes to evidence management. So that sort of multifaceted skill is important, and no one lawyer can do it on their own. So having that skill, either organically growing that skill set or bringing people in, is going to be fundamental. The second part, in terms of the pedagogical changes that are needed, that's very much up to what has to happen in terms of the university and, with the academies dealing with continual legal education like yourselves, where you can create these courses to either, ensure that the young ones coming in have an understanding of not just AI, but problem solving. There's a great article today in the Straits Times forum column by Singapore Academy of Law, where they were responding to a lawyer who was very concerned about the fact that there is no way in which the lawyers are able to keep up with what's going on with AI, and his concern is existential in nature. So SAL, being very pragmatic, they came up with a very simple response in the forum column, talking about a new form of teaching that they're putting in place for lawyers. But what I was heartened by was that it wasn't just focusing on how AI works and what AI tools are available. Rather, it was focusing on new ways of thinking about solving problems, legal solutions. So it goes down to that fundamental level. And I think that is key, because when you do it that way, you're not just talking about what AI can do. You're talking about, let me see if I can find the words that are there. Yeah, understand the reasons behind some legal thought processes, which may not necessarily be answered by technology. So also understanding the limitations of what AI can and cannot do is key. Not just what it can do, but what it cannot. And where it cannot serve its purpose, it's important for lawyers to know that they need to step up and continue to apply their professional knowledge and skill to make sure that the end product to the client is not compromised.
Yeah,
so
but
I think that's
it is. And I love what you've said there, Rajesh, because very often we're focused on the delivery aspect of the services or product or solution, which of course we should be. But to me, there is this huge mindset shift and a huge change, not just to the work, but how we conceive the work before we get to the delivery aspect of it, which I think is what you're pointing to there. So it's just a really important observation. Thank you for it. Kamal, I know that this is near and dear to your heart as well, this focus on capability development and whether we have it, and in a way almost what we've got to do to get ready. Because I look at this and just think the sheer scale of this is mind-boggling. The sheer scale of the education need, not just with the early career entry folks, but right across the board, is just astronomical. So tell us how you're approaching that in perhaps your firm and in India more broadly.
So 2 questions. The first question about the multidisciplinary teams. When we started with the exploratory stage last year in March, it was the innovation team that was focusing on just finding out, doing a market research on what's available, how does it work and all of that. But when we then realized, okay, this is really good and we must, take this forward in the firm, we formed an AI study group. And that AI study group comprises of IT, our IT head, our InfoSec team, a few practitioners, the chief strategy officer, and me. So what are we doing? We are representing various, stakeholders in bringing, so to make sure that, I think the worst thing that can happen is that we love the product. We also go ahead with the pilot and then we come to know, oh, this is not compatible. Oh, there is too many risks involved. So we want all the boxes to be ticked before we go ahead with saying that, okay, this is the one that we want to go do a pilot with. And also each one is a sounding board. The IT will make sure that, okay, this technology compatible with our infrastructure. InfoSec will look at the risks and the confidentiality. The strategy officer looks into the commercials. I look into, how are our people going to receive it? And how am I going to implement it? Because look, this is a huge firm of 1,000+ lawyers. And are we going to do it in batches? How easy will it be? How many limitations are there? How am I going to do the training? And, this is a very, very important piece that, okay, we've done all of this exercise, tick the boxes, and now we say, okay, we're going ahead with this technology. How are you going to make sure that this technology is implemented well and everyone is using it. I think a lot of focus of the innovation team is on the implementation, on the training that's going to go with, just making an announcement that here it is, this is your new, tool and please use it. We create manuals, we conduct regular trainings, we do so many, we have awareness sessions, we have wallpapers pushing the information out. We have emails, so we follow both traditional, modern, personal, in person, all sorts of methods to make sure that people understand what we are trying to do, what benefits, because always you have to focus on what is in it for me. Otherwise, no one wants to really do anything if I'm not going to be a beneficiary. So you have to focus on, listen, this was your problem, and this is the solution, and this is how your life is going to be easy. And give them a hands-on experience, and if it means that it is literally like spoon feeding or hand holding, that's fine, because that's the only way that you can make this a success. So the innovation team focuses a lot on the right implementation and continuous training and feedback. On the other hand, with respect to the students, Terry, I think they're very, very smart. While the curriculum may not have like a specific thing on AI, the progressive law schools are coming up with an elective subject on maybe innovation, design thinking, or legal technology. And I see most of the students opt for that elective subject. And also, even if that wasn't there, they are so aware now. There's so much of information everywhere, and who doesn't want to be efficient? Who doesn't want to be, do more work, in less time? So they will already know it. They will already have these tools on their phones, and they will be using it already. So the only thing is that, when officially, say, for example, the college is teaching you something or the college is providing you access, you just get better. And that's where I think, a course like CAM's Click bridges the gap, where we focus on legal tech innovation, design thinking, and we give them hands-on experience on the tools that we use, so that they're ready. And obviously they're going to have an edge over anybody else who doesn't know what AI is, or what generative AI is, or how they can use these technologies in the practice of law. So students are very smart, and I meet the students very often. And I see that they already are asking all the right questions. They're so aware, so knowledgeable. They just want to get in there. And in fact, one of the, I think qualifications, whether I should work for this firm or not, is that, do you have the right technologies to support? If you're not using technology, or if you're still going the traditional way, the good students don't want to join that firm, because they don't want to work in the old-fashioned manner.
Yeah, they don't want it to be career limiting, right? They want it to open up.
They'll make quick choices, and yeah.
Seb, let me ask you this question, but I'm also going to throw in another piece to this, if I may. Is there a natural starting point? Is there a thing that everybody has to learn to do? And the reason I'm asking you that question is that some law firms have started, for example, with training around prompt engineering and responsible AI, getting folks, that's almost the foundation stone after the real basics, which is, this is the technology and this is what it does. Is there a key starting point, do you think? Because I know you're looking at it again through a whole bunch of different lenses.
Yeah, this is absolutely something that I've looked at from different angles. One issue. So one hat that I wear is being a part-time lecturer at Hong Kong University, and we had a faculty forum start of last semester. With how shall we address OpenAI, ChatGPT or GenAI in a classroom context, right? And it's a roundabout way of me addressing the point that at the end of the day, we have to train the trainers on what kind of new skills and how do we look at the information and work products that we do, right, to supervise the AI and to really understand where the faults and challenges are, right? We all have heard about the issues of hallucination. This is partly due to the technical nature of generative AI, that it is, sharing, sort of creating words and sentences based on probabilities of, how they should be associated with each other in particular context. And and prompt engineering, as you pointed to, is providing the right rails, right, for the AI to be guided in certain directions. So having basic understanding of how, work products are being generated from a GenAI context, for example, is definitely, a key starting point. For me, it was a study of statistics. The first generation before LLMs were popularized, that was the area that I worked in, and I encouraged junior members to at least take a more cursory view of how the data is being processed by AI, and where could be the tricky spots. Prompt engineering could just be a bridging step that we have to get trained on. For example, I think there was Jensen and the team at NVIDIA who was saying that let the technology come to you. They want to be able to develop technology, AI technology particularly, in ways that you wouldn't, coding or hardcore programming and coding may be a thing of the past in the future, right? So and how does prompt engineering evolve from that point? Is another matter. So how do we learn about the meta knowledge, the knowledge about the knowledge? I think that's where that's how we can guide ourselves to see where the ball is going to, rather than where the ball is now, in terms of keeping the play going.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, another big part of that is actually learning the language. We've used a lot of it in the sessions so far today, but being able to understand that and what it means, it is, I think, increasingly going to be part of the language to be able to work with clients as well, who are obviously being exposed to all of this. But let me jump into the kind of the last big area that I'd like to address today, and that is around what's unique in Asia in relation to legal Gen AI. All of you, just simply by virtue of where you are all located, if not actually within your practices, work internationally. So you're in a really good position, I think, to answer the question I'm about to pose to you. And I'm going to come to you first on this, Seb. Is there something about legal Gen AI that you think is unique or different about how it's unfolding in Asia compared with other parts of the world?
I think there are obviously a lot of global issues, because Gen AI is available online, and we deal with cross-border and international matters quite a bit now. So I think dealing with, for example, authenticity of the data, deep fakes, and whatnot. And because of these issues, they do translate to regulatory responses, right? Policies, rules, and new laws coming out. I think that's where sort of the localization of the issues comes in. It's quite divergent approaches. Although, like, for example, Hong Kong doesn't yet, they're toying with the idea of having an authority that looks at AI issues. A lot of issues are still grounded in data privacy. However, cross the border to mainland China, they already have 2 interim measures, sort of regulatory guidelines, right, in place already, that looks at, for certain issues, they look very global, very reasonable about personal data, about, making sure that the data is, that the output is accurate and reliable, and there's no abuse of customer data, right? And then there are some elements that are very specific, that the algorithms needs to be part of an authorized registry, that they should adhere to, national values and national principles. There's, political alignment with those values as well, and that's embedded, in the interim measures. So, given the fact that in Hong Kong we deal a lot with businesses and clients, across in the mainland as well, these are the things that we have to look at, if we're deploying and using AI in the day-to-day work that we look at. That, and also, of course, bilingual and multilingual working environments. Gen AI has been doing those, quite well. yeah, so, these are the kind of specific things that we look at here in Hong Kong.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. And the same question for you, Kamal, in India. Is there anything that you feel that is unique in your country, or you see more broadly unique in Asia in the legal Gen AI space?
So I wouldn't say unique, Terry, because all of us are learning from each other. I would say that we may have started a little later than the rest of them, so we are learning from them. We are seeing the good thing is that when you start a little late, then there are already some precedents for you. There's already so much information for you, so you're learning from them. And again, everything might not be relevant for you because you have to then see how does it suit me. But you have some examples. You have some, the benefits would have been flagged for you, the risks would have been flagged for you already. So we are taking advantage of that, I would say. But at the same time, when you hear a lot of global news so far, by the way, even our, one of our high courts, the Punjab and Haryana High Court, has tried to take the help of AI in decision making in a case. They're trying that out. Our Chief Justice has just said that AI is inevitable, we must use it. Just yesterday, we had and Rajesh has been a part of that session. So all of this is happening, but because there is this global news of risks involved and ethics issues and bias issues, obviously there's hesitation. And as a lawyer, you must obviously be very concerned about these issues, because at the end of the day, for us, it is way more important for us to be sure of no breaches in confidentiality, ethics, etc. And all these examples of AI making up cases and or being biased towards a particular community or a group of people or some something of that sort, or professionals. That is something that we need to avoid. But also then there are regulations, right? So again, we are starting late. So we have examples of like the European Union or the others who have already taken way bigger steps in implementing or in drafting regulations. We have those precedents, and then we can refer to them. And so we are in the process of, I wouldn't say that we've already done that, but at the same time, while the country does that, I think the ones who are ahead as companies, they are framing their own guidelines as well for the firms or for the companies to abide by as they get into using generative AI. And that is a good step, I think, because if you keep waiting for that, we'll only do it when the country does it, it might just be too long a wait. So that is why everyone's drafting their own policies. And again, we're taking help from what we're seeing globally and what's working and what is not working. So that is my answer, really. Nothing unique. We actually are at an advantage because we have our global counterparts who've already been a little ahead in this.
The benefit of hindsight is a beautiful thing. So
Absolutely.
Rajesh,
you don't always have to be the first one. Sometimes it's okay to be the second and the third.
Absolutely. Yeah. Rajesh, as I look at Singapore, I would say it's busy. There's a lot going on in this space. And so I wonder, does it create a uniqueness for Singapore? How does that work, do you think?
Perhaps, but I think we're humble enough to know that we have a lot to learn also. I mean, this trip to India has been an eye-opener for me and a very humbling exercise. Just looking at the sheer scale that India is seeking to potentially apply AI across one of the most busiest bench and bar anywhere in the world. It's phenomenal. And scale-wise, I think we need to be realistic as to where India is and where Singapore is. But of course, that small size has its inherent benefits as well, and we'd be silly not to leverage that. So what we do at our end is to try and make sure that we make the most of what we have. So for example, in Singapore, there is no backlog when it comes to cases. But surely we can look at some sector-specific application of AI, right, between the bar and the bench, so that we can enhance the way in which matters are disposed of. So those are the types of efforts we're looking at, seeing how we can work with India and other jurisdictions on areas like online dispute resolution, which I think is a very powerful thing that should be explored further, especially when it comes to cross-border disputes, and then trying to overlay that with a layer of artificial intelligence tools to help the lawyers present their case and helping the judges in disposing of the case at a much more efficient way. At a more pragmatic level for us in practice, I think we are fortunate because the government is very proactive in putting in place measures. We have a multitude of governance frameworks that we can look at. And the model that Singapore adopts is not to regulate this space. We've learned, again, through what the experiences in Canada, where when I was there and then not being able to use Google Bard, as it was then known, and you get the message saying this service is not available in your jurisdiction in Canada, right? Because they were on the verge of passing their AI law. And now the EU has gone ahead and passed its laws, and I respect their decision to do so. But I have some reservations about the approach taken there as well. What we want to try and do in Singapore is to start first with understanding standards, creating implementable compliance-based standards, and using that first as the basis for creation of the law. And if you do it that way, then the laws become compliable laws and not just laws that are there for populist purposes because people are upset or they're concerned, and then you pass a law and you don't tell the companies who are using or deploying AI and the vendors who are selling AI solutions as to how they can comply. What happens then is an exclusionary model. People say, well, then, no, sorry, I'll stop doing this. Because the compliance officer simply cannot come up with a governance framework that truly understands how to comply with the law. So it's very important that we set standards first, then pass the law. That's what the United States is doing as well, with the work that the NIST is coming with. That's what Singapore is doing as well through our own AI Verify Foundation, which is an open source based standard that's available and accessible by anyone across the world. So do have a look at that. In terms of legal specific, our Chief Justice has been leading the charge right at the top, telling us that we need to really understand the issues. And through him, the Singapore Academy of Law have introduced a set of training modules that I've just shared with you, which doesn't just tell you what AI can do, but also what AI cannot do. And that's key. And that's why, again, the lawyers' inherent legal skills are still very relevant in the world today. And that gives you a sense of hope. So it's not an existential argument at all that's being run. There's a challenge that's thrown down. You need to understand how you can leverage AI. And then finally, if I can, from an accountability perspective, as all of these tools are created, lawyers are the team, the team of individuals that are regulated individuals. And there's a need for that to be understood and respected. So as we use these tools, the question becomes to the consumer, where do you turn for recourse if the tools fail? If it's a private limited company, the liability is limited based on the capital of the company. There'll be specific terms and conditions that will exclude liability for any failures of these platforms. That is an unacceptable state of affairs from the perspective of the end users of legal services. And I hope that people understand where they're going to, if they're going to rely on that sort of risk profile. You will have no recourse if your legal advice is deficient. And it's not an unfair position because guess what? You're the one that put the question to the engine. So of course, you asked the question, maybe you didn't ask the right question. These are things that are going to be in the media in the next coming months as the hype cycle goes down. And then that's when people start saying, oh, wait, hang on, this is not the right model. So as lawyers, we need to be ahead of the curve, recognize that these are issues, highlight the fact that we're here, right? Leverage us. But tied with that also is the issue of access to justice. We must be able to pass on the savings that lawyers get through the use of these technologies down to our clients. If we don't do that, then it's bad faith on our part also. So we need to really think about how these efficiencies are gained, be able to demonstrate how the efficiencies can be passed on. Our courts are working very heavily on access to justice models. So we've brought Harvey into Singapore, as you may know, that's publicly shared information, and the courts have been working very closely with them to help self-represented individuals to be able to present their cases at the state tribunals, where lawyers don't have locus in any case. So for the small claims tribunal, my apologies, where there's no need for lawyers in any case. And that will help these self-represented individuals to be able to truly put forward credible cases and testing it out at that level. So those kinds of things means lawyers also need to use this technology, not just from an internal cost-saving perspective, but to ourselves see how can we create access to justice solutions to help the common man out there. So those are just some of the thoughts I want to share.
There are so many pieces that we still need to work through in this, I think. And so it's not surprising that, we're kind of still at the beginning of this journey, and that it's going to be an ongoing conversation, and it should be. But Rajesh, I do want to underscore and pick up one from many, many amazing points that you just made, and that is how critical it is to continue to have the lawyer voice in these conversations and for us to be able to actively contribute. And I hope that sessions like this and looking at how this is unfolding around the world will both introduce people to amazing folks such as yourself, where they can go and ask those questions of, but also to take those questions back to their respective countries, firms or legal businesses, and be asking those and finding and educating people to be able to respond to them as well. Most regrettably, we are at the end of our session, but I did want to thank you very much, Rajesh, Kamal and Seb, for being a part of this discussion. I know you all have the great pleasure of knowing you all, and that you are all open to folks approaching you, and they will find you in your respective organisations, but at the very least on LinkedIn if they have questions that they would like to pose to you. So thank you very much again for being part of this.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.